Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Atkin. I'm your host, Olivia Atkin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We will give you real life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Jalene Szuba. Jalene is the founder of Happiness Anchor. Happiness Anchor helps you develop and master your sleep regimen so you can thrive in your everyday life. You can find Jalene by going to her website, happinessanchor.com, or by emailing her at happy@happinessanchor.com, or by calling at 773-294-1147. Hello, Jalene. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Hi, Olivia. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited because sleep is so important. But before we dive into that part, I want to ask you, what does success mean and look like to Jalene Szuba?
So I love this question because I actually have a little card next to my desk that says success is not about where you're at. It's about where and who you decide you're going to be, which is kind of at odds with the definition of success as an accomplishment or an aim or purpose. So it really forces me to think about like the difference there. And I think success is a dynamic daily process towards an ongoing goal. I try to remind myself every day. I think it's not about where you're going. It's not about what you accomplished. It's kind of that movement in between is what are the goals and what are you doing to work towards those goals? And then also being satisfied or enjoying the journey between those two.
And I think that's so important of what you said, enjoying the journey between that in that area and in that space. And part of that is also understanding your body and understanding what your body needs and making sure it's getting that. For you, why have you decided to go into the avenue of helping others make sure they're optimizing their sleep schedule and getting that healthiness part of their life?
Well, I believe sleep is the anchor of all good health. It's when the body does its cleaning and restoring and refreshing. And so, if we're not getting good sleep, we're not able to be better focused, be more productive. I've always enjoyed helping people. It's just, I'm a natural empath since I was a little kid. And so it's taken me some years, but I finally found myself to coaching. And now I can really help other people find their own happiness through their own health. And so we start with sleep because I think that is the foundation.
For you and through your journey of, you were producer, then you worked on boats and you had so many different life experiences and have been everywhere. What has that journey been like for you? And, probably as life has gone on, you've even realized sometimes you might not get the sleep you want, or, hey, I really want to do this. It's okay. I'll lose. What has that played a role in you deciding, let me focus on sleep, even just for myself?
Yeah, I first realized how important sleep was when I was working. I was at the Beijing Olympics working on a press event, and we had been up really late getting everything ready, and we had call was super early in the next morning. And I was so nervous that I was going to oversleep. So I slept in the bed, sitting up, kind of leaning against the headboard. I didn't want to get too comfortable and get into that deep sleep. And then the next day, I had to stand at the podium for the audio guys and read a script. And the words were literally jumping around on the page. I was almost delirious because I hadn't gotten enough sleep. And that's when it really hit home to me that we really need to focus on that. And so over the years, it's just been something that I've tried to remind myself, at the end of the day, okay, it's time to unwind. It's time to get into bed. It's just as important as eating, as getting exercise, as hydration. So when we were working on the boats, it was also challenging because we had long, long days and we were exhausted. But I think my sleep was probably good then because I was so tired.
For you, what do you try to do to make sure that you're continuously, checking in with yourself, getting that good sleep and staying on a schedule. Because like you said, sleep really affects a lot of different aspects of your life. So it really starts with, like working out, making sure you're having that routine and sticking to it.
Routine is key. Having a consistent routine for when you go to sleep and when you get up is the best way to ensure getting good sleep. If you're someone who's, very sporadic, you get up or you stay late, up late on different times, different days of the week, it can really wreak havoc. Your body likes routine. It likes what it knows. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important. So for me, I've also learned in my research that all of our cells have clocks and they know what they're supposed to do at certain times of the day. And so between roughly the hours of 9 and midnight, it's a little different for everyone, but that's when I think of it as the Zamboni. That's when it comes in and clears the ice and makes everything clean in our brain, because research has shown if we're not clearing out that plaque and the proteins that are building up during the day, that can lead to long-term neuro issues like Alzheimer's, dementia, and even chronic diseases. So with that information, that's what motivates me to make sure I'm going to bed around 10 o'clock every night. And I usually like to brush my teeth, wash my face, take the evening medications. And then I like to get into bed and do a little journaling, some gratitude, and read a book. And that's how I unwind at the end of the day. And just knowing that that's what's happening in my brain and how important that is for my long-term brain health is what gets me into bed every night.
And I think it's so important of the aspect you brought up too, is our bodies are on the clock. We understand we're on a clock, but also the time set of that clock. So between 9 and midnight, understand that you're starting to get into different rhythm. And those rhythms in the day are so important too, of where your mind is, what you need to kind of start to focus and realize that too. And that what might be part of the reason why come like 10 o'clock, you feel like you're not performing as well if you're staying up late to do a job or vice versa. And, one thing that came to mind to me as well is when you were discussing this is we do have, first responders, professionals out there in general who have to work a different shift, that night shift. You have nurses, doctors, cops, firefighters who their regimen is sleeping during the day. And that can be very hard to, have to work a night shift, come home, and now it's daytime. You also know you have to get things done. And then your body feeling like you need that sleep. What would your advice be to those individuals who might not be able to sleep during the typical time that we talk about sleep, but, keep them in the frame of mind of how they can make sure they're optimizing their sleep, even though they have all these other things going on and it might not be routine for them?
Yes, it's just the way our society works. We need to have those people. We need to have access to healthcare at 2 o'clock in the morning if there's a health emergency, or that's when the janitors can come in and clean the office because no one's working. So it is a reality that people have to have that alternate shift. It's based in our circadian rhythms, which is based around the sun and our 24-hour cycle. So it can be changed. Working with a professional is a great way to do it because you're going to want to have consistent eating times and sleeping times. And so it goes back to that routine and that consistency that our body gets used to. I feel for my neighbor is a firefighter and she's on 2 days and off 4 days. And I feel for her because her body isn't getting into that routine. So like you said, it's very important to make sure that when you are getting the sleep, you're getting that deep, deep sleep. So one way to do that is to make sure your environment is conducive. So you want to have it darker. The light is going to activate our eyes. You want to have it cooler. High 60s to 70 Fahrenheit is our bodies change temperature as we sleep. So if it's too hot, that could wake us up. Sound. Some people like to listen to white noise. I like to listen to soothing music. I listen to a channel called Deep Sleep on Spotify. Scent, lavender is very relaxing for people. So really making sure you can do whatever you can control in your environment to get you into that relaxed state and get into that deeper sleep. So even if you're only getting 4 or 5 hours, if you can get into that deeper sleep, that's going to be regenerative too.
And I think that's so important. And you brought up something I didn't even realize of I knew, yes, your body can change temperatures. I mean, we all feel it, whether it's during the day or at night. All of a sudden, you might wake up and you're like, wow, it's really hot. I'm sweaty. But there is a method to a temperature in a room that can really optimize that to make sure you're staying in your rhythm and, getting that REM sleep, because that's a part of it I didn't necessarily think of regularly is when your body overheats and you feel too hot, you tend to wake up more. And that's part of it. And so when you make sure your room is conducive to that and your environment and doing those other things, like smells that make you feel smooth, if there's sound that helps you be relaxed and stay in that sleep, but also a really interesting and important point that some people typically forget is the light aspect. And I think, I always sleep in the dark, but there's people coherently, they put their phone up and it starts going off in the night. And even if you have it on silent, there's that light that's popping up. You might sleep with the TV on. So now you have all the light from the television playing. And I liked your kind of idea of how you can switch that up with the television is playing something on your phone and you can flip the phone down.
Right. And yeah, you're so right, because it is, light is such a factor. It really triggers our brain to start to wake up because of the sunrise and the light that comes from phones. A lot of people don't realize phones, TVs, tablets, it's that same light as sunlight. So your brain's like, oh, I'm supposed to be awake. I'm supposed to be getting ready for the day. So watching TV, I know there's a lot of people who think that helps them fall asleep, but it's actually false. You're not getting that same good kind of sleep. They do make blue light blocking glasses that I highly recommend if you're someone who has to look at your phone before you go to bed or watch TV to fall asleep, or you read on your tablet. That's a really great way to help filter the light so your brain can start producing the melatonin, start unwinding and doing what it's supposed to be doing at that time, going to sleep. I'm a big fan of reading old-fashioned books. I love to read before I go to sleep.
And that was going to be my next question. What is your typical nighttime routine?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan. Like I said, I love to read. I've always loved to read. And my mom used to read to me when I was a little kid before I fell asleep. So I think that's why it's still a very comforting way for me to unwind at the end of the day. I also like to take some time to gratitude, I think is such an important, powerful tool. And so I try to take some moments to think about what I'm grateful for. I recommend that to my clients who maybe when they're, trying to get into bed, all of a sudden they're thinking about tomorrow and what they got to do, or they're getting anxious and thinking about something in the future. Try to do your to-do list, look at tomorrow's calendar, do your to-do list, kind of let that go, get into bed, think about some things that you're grateful for, or a place that makes you happy, or someone who makes you happy, so that you're falling off into slumber in a positive mindset. So that's what I try to do.
Jalene, for you, what has been the most rewarding part of finding your rhythm and regimen for sleep that you've seen a change and adapt as you've changed and grown and really dive into the career of helping others change their sleep rhythm?
I've taken a lot of time to make the connection to when I go to sleep and when I wake up and how I feel that day. For example, last night, I knew that we were going to be talking this morning. So I was like, I got to go to bed early. I want to feel refreshed and ready. And we have a boxer. He was sitting behind me. He's gone now. He has some tummy problems right now. So he was up in the middle of the night, waking us up. He had to go outside. So I woke up feeling just so tired today. But I immediately got myself outside, got my eyes adjusted to the sunlight so my body could start its rhythm, knowing that today is a work day. We got to be awake and alert. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I can't rely on caffeine. I worked at Starbucks when I was in college, and I drank more caffeine than anyone should. And I really wanted to wean off it. And now I'm so sensitive to it. If I drink it, I get really hyper. So I actually thought about having a cup this morning because I was like, how am I going to wake up? So I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you definitely did. And it leads me to another question of what advice would you give someone, or what do you kind of, it happens of you wake up those days, you think you're going to get a good night's sleep, or you try and you're like, I've even had those days of like, I did the 7 hours, but I woke up and I'm tired. I mean, you brought up the great point of like, just step outside for a minute, especially if it's sunny. It can be harder in the winter or if it's cloudy out, but just even stepping outside so that your body can know what time it is. But what else can individuals do that, whether it's a new parent, you just didn't get that sleep for whatever reason, or you felt like you got that sleep, but then you wake up and you're like, I'm still tired. I could go for another 6 hours. What would you say that could help those individuals at those moments of time?
Have some grace with yourself. And that kind of goes to your previous question too. When I wake up on a day like today, I try to not get frustrated. I try to give myself a break. I did what I could to get to bed. I probably woke up in the middle of a cycle because we have these 90-minute cycles that we go through 4 or 5 times in the night. And if you're waking up in the middle of that, your body's, discombobulated in a sense. Your brain is like, wait a minute, we were doing something else and now we have to be awake, coherent, and alert. So having grace, knowing, and I think part of it too is that knowledge, knowing, okay, that's why I'm tired. I probably did something, a lot of people would love to wake up when their bodies let them wake up, but we don't all have that luxury. We got to go get up when the alarm goes off. And sometimes that gets us up in the wrong cycle. So knowing that, okay, that's what's happening. That's just my body doing its thing. I can go out for some exercise. I can go out and get some sun. If you have to have some caffeine to help you get awake, get on the phone, talk to a friend, anything that you can do to kind of get the blood pumping will help your body get more awake and get going for the day and energized.
And I love how you brought up the fact that you have to know your body and know what will get your blood pumping. Some people that's, going for a quick run in the morning. That'll get them going. They'll then feel wide awake. Some people that's talking to friends and family. Now they have also those connections they're building and, feeling connected and ready to go because they've had healthy conversations to start off your day. For some people, it's having that cup of coffee. I'm not a big coffee drinker either. We've discussed this, but, everyone has their thing. I've definitely had times where with my schedule, whether it was working in professional sports or, you just get a big workload and there's deadlines and you have to stay up late and then you have to wake up early for something, an event, whatever it might be, or just life happens, right? You have dogs and they have to go out all of a sudden in the middle of the night, kids wake up sick. And for me, that's drinking Coca-Cola. I am a big Coca-Cola fan. Sometimes I'll grab it, 8 in the morning. I'm like, okay, I need it today. We're doing this. But it's knowing for you what that is. And that's really important, is understanding yourself. For you, you work with a lot of high professionals and executives and trying to teach them, no matter what's going on in your work or your personal life, it is important to get that sleep. What have you seen with them that as they start to really understand the importance of sleep and how that affects them in their everyday life, like the transition that occurs mentally, but also with their sleep, with everything else?
Yeah, it's really exciting. And as you said, it's so important to know yourself. And that's the great thing about working with a coach. That's one of the things a coach can do, is bring out your best self. We don't prescribe, we don't dictate. We work with you to figure out what is going to work for you. So then you become more self-aware and you're working in your own body rhythms. So what I've seen with clients is, I had one client who had gone through a lot of health issues. and he'd just come out of the hospital. So at the hospital, they're waking you up every couple hours to take all your vitals. So he was still working on getting relaxed at home so he could sleep through the night. And that first night, he texted me the next morning, was like, I slept 8 hours last night and I feel amazing. So there's kind of like this aha moment that happens when they finally get it all together. And there's kind of an empowerment that comes with that. Like, I was able to do it. It wasn't a drug. It wasn't what someone else did. I did this. My body did this for me. So that's really exciting when that click happens. And then it can become a snowball. A lot of times, if someone's trying to lose weight and it's just not happening, it's probably because they're not getting good sleep. It could be a lot of things, but that's why I like to start with the sleep. So then they start getting good sleep and the hormones are working the way they're supposed to. And then they're eating when they're supposed to. So there's so many things that trickle from the dominoes that happen when you're getting good sleep. You're more focused. You're feeling more productive at work. You're relating to people better. When we're not sleeping, we can be really irritable. And that affects the relationships at work and with our loved ones. So now you're connecting. You're feeling more connected. And then to me, it's just a momentum that starts to go. You're like, oh, you're making that connection. That was because I got good sleep. So then you can start to prioritize and really guard it. Like those hours, like I'm going to be in bed at this time because that's what makes me feel better in so many areas of my life.
And we've talked about this, and talking about it, you just brought it up of how it really affects all the different areas of your life. And people forget that sometimes, that sleep plays such an important aspect in how you feel, how you interact, how you process things in the day. Just all of it can really alter when you make sleep a priority. We've talked about, we both enjoy golf a lot, and we've talked about the analogy of you change one thing in your golf swing and it can change 7 different things of how your swing actually progresses and you hit the ball and how far it goes and everything else. And that one change can end up affecting 7 different changes. And that is the aspect of sleep. You change one thing in your sleep regimen or just changing your sleep, and all those moving pieces, those 7 pieces of, your sleep, your eating, your alertness, your interaction
energy
with
levels.
Yeah, all those things end up shifting. So for you, what are the things that you try to tell people when they might be going, sleep, it's just that one part. There's all these other things I have to think about or prioritize and going on at the same time.
Yeah. And there's so many people that say, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead, which isn't a good way to think about it. Education. I believe that when, so many times we're making decisions based on either misinformation or lack of information. So I really try to educate the people that I work with on what is happening, what is your body doing, and why does your body need those hours of sleep and rest? And then once they really understand that function of it, then they can make the decisions. So I think it's education.
And I think that's really important. I'm glad you brought that up, because education in any area is so important. When you understand something, you have a deeper connection to it, and it makes you understand why things are happening. I think we forget about that sometimes, of like, just give me the answer. But if I give you the answer, sometimes when things get hard, it's like, okay, well, I don't really understand the answer, so I'm just like going to do it, or it's not as important because I don't have that back meaning. When we all understand the process, you end up really being able to connect with it more, and then being able to say, okay, this is the priority. For you, how do you help others, or you would recommend to someone to get some of that education, where they can start off and then potentially go to you, or just like understand their whole sleep atmosphere?
Sure. And I think, going back to what we were talking about, education, what popped in my head is it's why kids ask why, right? Why? Because they're just trying to understand how it all works together. So in order to learn more about sleep, there's a lot of great resources on the internet. There's a lot of great books. I'm drawing a complete blank on, there's a great sleep book author. But another thing to do is just take a sleep audit. Think about when you got your best sleep. Was it when you were a little kid and your mom read to you like me? Or was it after you finished a dissertation? Or, you just delivered something at work? Or maybe you worked in the yard all day and you were exhausted. So thinking about what conditions there were, what was that like that got you into that good sleep? And then also doing what I call a sleep audit. So what's your room look like? Some of those, think of the five senses: sight, smell, touch, taste. What is going on in your room? So maybe your room is really bright, so you could darken it or wear an eye patch. Maybe there is a lot of sound that from your neighbor, so maybe listening to white noise or putting in headphones. So it's kind of a trial and error. Even when I work with my clients, there's no, it doesn't, it's the thing that's really neat is it's unique to everybody. So you need to experiment with your own environment and your own routine and just take some notes. And it might take a couple weeks of journaling, this is what I did and this is how I felt when I woke up. So let's try this again. And that's the great thing about working with a coach, is that we can help that process come a little faster, and really check in with you and maybe give you some more options that you may not be thinking about. But internet is a great resource.
And I love the fact you brought up, it is trial and error, and it is very unique for every individual. So you don't want to give up. If you go the first 3 nights and you're like, oh, I'm feeling this way when I wake up, or it's not optimizing. It's not something where someone can just tell you the 5 things to do. And then once you do those 5 things, you've had success. It's like life. And especially with the show, we talk about success always changes. Your body, your lifestyle, it's always adapting. So taking that sleep audit and understanding like how things change and journaling, working with the coach like yourself definitely helps, but sometimes you don't have access to that. But being able to hold yourself accountable and say, listen, by journaling, I'm holding myself accountable. I'm also seeing what's working. Writing it on your phone, like journaling does not necessarily mean writing it on paper every day. Hey, shoot yourself that text and say, this is what I did last night, or and this is how I felt this morning, and keep that log for, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it might be. And then look at it and be like, okay, well, I felt this way today and I felt that way yesterday. What changed, and how might there be a happy medium, or what can I realistically be doing? I think that's so important, because holding yourself accountable will really make yourself enforce your sleep regimen, and then it becomes a habit over time as well.
Absolutely.
Jalene, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
Well, my website is happinessanchor.com. My email address is happy@happinessanchor.com. And my phone number is 773-294-1147.
Thank you, Jalene, for all of your insight today.
You're welcome.
A few of our key takeaways from today's conversation is sleep is the anchor to our health and our happiness. They go hand in hand, as well as having a consistent sleep regimen, and that routine is important. No matter the aspect of your life, routines really help us grow and thrive, because your body gets used to that routine, as well as high 60s to low 70s is the ideal temperature for your room when you're sleeping. Something I definitely learned today. And now I'm going to be going and checking, make sure what my room temperature is. But always keep that in mind, that, that is a good knowledge base to even something simple that you can make sure that it's set to, and that you can thrive in your sleep, as well as take your own sleep audit. It's really important to understand what might be going on in your environment, and then this might be why it's affecting my sleep, and then changing it accordingly. Like Jalene had said earlier, write it down. It's trial and error sometimes. Also, circumstances change things. So understanding, keeping that routine and writing it down for the first few weeks We'll help you understand what will work for you and help you optimize your sleep regimen. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Jalene Szuba. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.